Welcome back, everyone. Today's session of the Division 45 Virtual Mentorship will be focused on navigating academia. Today, we have Doctors Luis and Enedina Vázquez with us today from New Mexico State University. And we're gonna kind of ask them a couple of different questions and have them talk to us more about what it's like working in academia and administration. So I'm gonna allow for them to introduce themselves, whoever wants to go first.
Well, okay, I guess I'll go first. Enedina Vázquez. I am a professor, full professor at New Mexico State University right now, but I have had various positions across the university. I've served as associate dean for the graduate school. I was associate director of the honors college, and that position is now considered an associate dean position as well. I've been a deputy director of the physical science laboratory, which is a unit on campus that's completely externally funded, with working with grants and contracts with the federal government, with state, and doing very interesting things. And then I've been, most recently, I was Associate Dean of Academic Affairs, and now I've returned back to faculty. I've returned back to faculty a couple of times thinking that's it, no more administration, and then I get sucked back right in.
Something about administration, huh?
Yeah, but that's the last one. Anyway, so we're here together at the same university. Still do some research together and some grantsmanship as well. And I am right now trying to launch our doctoral program, a brand new school psychology doctoral program that we just got approved this semester. So
yeah, congratulations.
What I'm focusing on. Thank you.
Okay, I'm Luis Vázquez. I'm the Associate Vice President for Research and Graduate Studies for New Mexico State University. I'm also a full professor, Regents Professor, and endowed chair from the Counseling and Educational Psychology Department. I've had several positions, including being Associate Dean of the Graduate School, but also Department Head for Counseling and Ed Psych Department. I've been in administration now for 18 years. And I oversee, for the research parts, I oversaw all the compliance areas, animal research, human subjects research, biosafety, and also radiation. And then also oversaw the grantsmanship and so forth. So I've run a few grants through the university, and I currently have 3 grants from National Science Foundation, and I'm still... from time to time, we're contemplating a book together. We're not sure yet whether or not we're going to enter that endeavor because time is limited. But here we are in New Mexico, and my gosh, it's been a long time since I got my doctorate's in counseling psychology.
Yeah, so you two have been quite the pair together at New Mexico State.
Yes. Yeah, we've been here this summer will be 24 years.
Wow. Awesome. Awesome. So kind of the first question I have, so I may throw out some questions. We'll just kind of see how it goes. Okay. But the first question I have is, when did you realize that you wanted to be in academia? Either one can start first.
I was thinking, I'm like, when did I realize that? I think probably it wasn't until I was actually in a doctoral program. When I started my master's, it was still a very applied master's. So I was working as a bilingual school teacher. And that's when the opportunity to apply to the doctoral degree in school psychology at Iowa came up for me. And so I thought, oh, okay, that seems cool. But it wasn't until I was actually taking the coursework and then getting ready to graduate that I thought, wait a minute, I think I'd rather be a faculty member. And what we've tried to do over the years is kind of balance it out. So our primary role has been as faculty, but we've also kept our foot in practice until most recently because of the administration work that we've done. It makes it difficult. But once I started to see what that life was like and what the expectations were, that's when I really started pursuing positions in fact, all the positions we applied for were in academia after we got our doctorate.
Okay, so clinical practice kind of left.
Yeah, for me, it wasn't as big because I just focused more on the academic side of life, even though I did practice as a school psychologist. It just, for us, it would be in the schools to do clinical practice or a private practice setting, agencies, similar to counseling psychology, but not exactly the same. So, yeah.
Okay, and then for me, it was a little bit different because to be honest with you, I had no idea if I was even going to get a doctorate. So my significant other is one that convinced me, because I came from a family of 9, and my mother had gone up to 2nd grade and my father 7th grade. And I was first one of all my relatives to ever graduate from high school. So when I got to, when I took off to Illinois State University for my bachelor's degree, that was a shock in and of itself. And when I graduated from there, in Spanish, by the way, I passed the civil service exam in Illinois. I had been born in inner city, Southside Chicago. So I passed the exam for the social work, and I ended up being a child abuse investigator for 3.5 years. My first job. Then from there, I went on to the University of Iowa in the Minority Affairs Office and worked a lot with graduate students and so forth, and undergrad recruitment, traveling, retention, and so forth. And then when I finished my doctorate, my first job, I went to Texas A&M for my pre-doc internship. And so my first job after graduating was with the University of Iowa Counseling Center. I was a senior staff psychologist. Did that for 3.5 years. Then I moved over to faculty when I felt I needed more flexibility. And to be honest with you, I saw a lot of clients. So then I ended up in the rehab psychology program and rehab counseling. Did that for about 3.5 years. And then when we came to New Mexico in 1995, I still had here right away, because there weren't any bilingual psychologists. I had a private practice and there for 4 years. It was very lucrative. And so I worked with high profile clients, whether they be mayors, police, sheriffs, state police, so forth, and many other families. While I was a professor too.
Right.
And then it took off. So I had, I think what encouraged me was I ended up being department head by accident, by the way.
As much things in life go.
So
a lot of our leadership positions have been by accident. I mean, we didn't, say, okay, I want to be a department head, or I want to be an associate. It's just things have come up that put us, what do we call it? The accidental leaders?
Reluctant leaders.
Reluctantly.
There we go. Yeah. Accidentally reluctant. And
and from there, and so I still stayed in academia, but in the administrative side. After I left faculty, I'm still faculty. I used to teach maybe a course here and there, but beyond that, I've stayed in administration for this is my 18th year.
Wow. Yeah. Kind of find your niche area. I mean, I still feel like there's a big need for bilingual therapists now. I have a practicum in neuropsychology, and even doing some of the assessments. In Baylor, actually, they have one psychologist that will actually do the assessments in Spanish. And there's so many different norms depending on where you're from.
Exactly.
Culture. Yeah. Okay, let's talk a little bit about kind of finding a position that has a good fit. So I know we said that was kind of accidental that you both ended up in administration, but what factors do you think contributed to feeling like they were positions that fit well?
Well, I can tell you for this last one that I did, the one that I just recently stepped down from, it was the associate dean for the College of Education, and it was the position was for the academic affairs side of the house. And so I knew that the college was going to need to be going through accreditation. And I looked around, and it seemed like I was the one with the most knowledge at the time and could easily more easily step into that role and get it done. And so that's one of the things that sort of encouraged me to apply, or actually I nagged myself, yeah, you better do it because it'll be for the good of the college. Because that's the other thing, one of the things that we always look, well, at least I always look for is this something that will serve some good? And then do I have the skills to do it? And so in this particular case, it fit very well because I knew it was for students' benefit. I've done and been working with accreditation for so many years that I felt that I could hit the ground running, especially because we didn't even have a system in place for us to, for the accreditation process. And that's one of the things that's always, I look at, do I have those particular skills? And then does it excite me? Would that be fun? Would that fit in with my future endeavors? What do I see my goals being in the future? And so would that give me the skills as well to be able to advance my own self, and not just, so it is partly for the good of people, but also the benefits to myself as well. Because if you're going to invest a lot of time like that in a position like that, you want to do it well, but you also want to make sure you have some passion and some skills related to that. So those would be my key points is, what do you want to do with it? Do you have passion, and do you have skills?
Okay.
Right. And then, and just to echo that, because to be honest with you, the best skills I had for goodness of fit for the position were my clinical skills. I was trained under interpersonal process. And my gosh.
IPT.
Yes, a bug in the ear, 4 to 5 hours a week, live supervision, one-way mirror.
Oh, me too.
Okay, well then you understand what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Well, see, those same skills, I've used more of my clinical skills in administration than I did when I was in private practice. I have had interesting, challenging faculty and administrators that walk into my office, and graduate students. And so, so when you talk about goodness of fit, I'd have to say that many of the positions, how can I put this? I have a knack for staying calm during crisis, and I don't get super excited. And I've had people have complete meltdowns, and I've maintained the situation without it getting out of hand. So I'm usually the one they call in to help do a lot of these things. However, having said that, though, you also end up getting a rep. Because when things hit, they call you up. So the last two positions I was in, I was brought in to help. Let me see, how can I put this diplomatically? I was brought in to help stabilize the situation.
Okay.
How's that?
Yeah, that works.
So those were, so many of those skills came up, but I still love presenting. That's why I'm still involved with APA, and I'm still involved. Right now I do a lot of things with the National Science Foundation. When I got into the research position, I ended up, oh my gosh. Oh, one thing I did learn though, from a lot of these positions, it's more that I do outside than I do inside. Because I've gotten an opportunity to sit at the national tables of research, National Science Foundation, National Institute of Health, the USD, the United States Department of Agriculture, all the research labs, Sandia, Lano, and all those. And I've been at the table with everybody and making decisions that would impact the university.
Wow.
So that's changed a lot for me. But my clinical skills have always, well, everybody realizes, and I'll throw this out, that 93% of your communication comes from your nonverbals and your tone inflection. Only 7% are words.
Right.
Haven't had all that training. It's coming very heavy when you're sitting down negotiating a lot of these contracts and so forth.
Yeah. So. Well, it's good to hear that the clinical skills are transferable, like they teach us.
Very, very generalizable. Very generalizable.
Right.
Absolutely. Right. All those micro skills that you learn, those are the ones that come in the most handy.
Yeah.
Because you're using them for therapy. That's why you learn them. But when you're working with individuals, especially when you're in positions of leadership, personnel issues come up, student issues. We had to deal with all kinds of stuff. Those micro skills really do come in handy.
Yeah. Right. And investigations. Oh my gosh. I do a lot of investigations too. So,
so the assessment and program evaluation skills that we learned in our doctoral programs, those help us with that kind of work. So definitely I've seen that probably the best leaders that I've seen out there have been psychologists who actually have skills. I mean, I've seen psychologists who don't do very well because they don't have interpersonal process skills.
Right.
The micro skills really have been poorly developed. But if you have a good handle on those skills, you can do a lot of stuff.
Right.
You can take on a lot of different positions.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's kind of one of those things that is always surprising to me when I see someone that has similar training to ours, and that yet their interpersonal skills are kind of wonky.
Wonky is right.
Yeah, wonky is the best word I can think of. But yeah, understandable. So we talked about some of your past experiences and some of your current as well. Can we talk a little bit more about some of your current responsibilities and how you've been able to balance them all, assuming that you found a balance?
Always. That's what we say.
Right.
Yeah, I was working on a Saturday afternoon.
Right. Yeah, I know.
What was the question?
So, no, it's okay. So kind of, yes, current responsibilities and how you find a way to balance all of those responsibilities.
Well, my responsibilities are not as demanding, I'm going to say, as my spouse, because he's still in an administrative role. I am a faculty member, and not to say that my job is easy, because I feel like an assistant professor right now, because I'm having to teach a bunch of new courses that I have never, that I've taught before, but it was like many years ago. So you've got to beef up and you've got to prep. And so I'm spending a lot of time prepping. So a lot of hours are spent trying to get class assignments together, grading, and getting the presentations ready for each of the classes. So I'm spending a lot of time doing that. But it is more flexible because I don't have that requisite 8 to 5 job or 8 to until the job gets done job. And so I can, work here, work there, squeeze in a few things. And it's easier for me to balance things out, I think, because of the flexibility in the schedule. I mean, I still have to get things done. Like I have a lot of grading to do right now because the end of the semester is coming. But we still have time. We love our senior citizen night on Mondays. A senior night at the theater, and then we'll go on the weekend. Yesterday we went to go see La Llorona. So we always make time to do some things that we need to do, and keeping in mind what we have promised, to our jobs and to our students and to the people that we worked for. So although I claim I need more time, but certainly.
I wish we could add some more to the day for sure.
I would just fill it with more things to do. So
I'm sure that's how it would work out.
Okay, and then for me, I did currently I also oversee the graduate school, and we inherited back in August. The Vice President for Research Office inherited that the graduate school, and since I used to be Associate Dean in the old days, I've done a lot of things with graduate programs. So I oversee all the graduate programs on campus. I'm often negotiating, whether it be graduate allocations for graduate assistantships, also budgets, dealing with graduation, time to graduation, trying to train some of the graduate program coordinators, working with the possibilities of because we're trying to integrate the research part along with the graduate school, which wasn't done before. And since I also still have a foot in the research area, I'm doing more things with the graduate school. We're doing traveling. We also do the development of new programs. So we help the different programs on campus that want to bring in like new doctorate degrees and so forth. Here you go through 9 internal committees, and I think it's 4 or 5 outside. So I also have to deal with the Department of Higher Education and meet with the Secretary of Education when new programs come up. And we also need meet with the Board of Finance for the legislature, so they can give us approvals. We can even have programs financially and so forth. And then I just got back from Santa Fe, where I was there with the Vice President for Research and the Dean of the graduate schools. We had to sit in these meetings for Board of Finance to make sure that everything worked out. On campus, I end up doing, I work with a lot of analytics, so I'm able to drill down from departments to programs to individuals. And I also help faculty be able to resolve any issues involving a lot of the mentorship issues involving such things as authorship. And then I also, the bad part, I would say not, one of the parts I don't like doing as much as I'm also in charge of investigations. So when there's allegations toward graduate students, faculty toward graduate students or graduate students toward faculty, I handle all of those too. And so my staff and I are always working 24/7. We're also responsible for the retention and graduation of our graduate students along with the programs on campus. We work closely with the provost and the president in many of these issues. And so we end up in at times, very pleasant meetings when things are going well, and very challenging, crucial discussion meetings when they're not.
Never a dull moment, I can assume.
No. So the balance for me is a little bit different because I have to work an 8 till you get the job done.
Right.
So there's times I'm still working into the night. We do go to movies. I enjoy that. I mean, we've been together, 36 years now as a couple.
Congratulations.
So we, 34 of it actually married, and the other 2 were dating. And we still pretend like we're dating. So.
Yeah, I heard you. No, you do not look a day over. I heard.
So we make sure, and so we're able to talk to each other when things are going. Though it's good to have somebody who has your best interest in mind, so they can talk to you and say, "Okay, man, we need to back off, or you need to slow down," or things like that. But many times, taking care of ourselves. We used to go on this bike trip. It was 400 something miles every summer.
500, yeah, sometimes almost 500.
Yeah, and that's pedaling, by the way, 50 to 70 miles a day.
Cool.
And camping out of that. But this year we're planning to go to Italy, so it's different. And then the following year we want to go visit do the trail of Santiago, the pilgrimage. So we plan things like that. But during the week we talk a lot to each other, and it's good to have, no matter where you're at, find people that you can trust, talk to, and they have your best interests in mind. Right. Because that'll keep you sane. Right.
I'm sure the politics of navigating academia is can be another segment for sure.
It's a good, it's actually not a bad life, especially with a couple with children.
Right.
Flexibility. I mean, Luis started as a department head before I started in the administrative role. And that's when our kids were young. And so here, the kids would go early. They have the system set up right, because the little ones, they go to a school earlier, but then they get out earlier. And the older ones go a little bit later, and then they get out later. So my schedule changed over the years. But because he was a department head and, he had to be there 8 to 5, then I was able to have that flexibility to go pick up the kids, drop them off, and do some of those things. So it's actually not a bad life. In fact, I say being a professor, a full professor, is the best. The best job. I mean, it's just, you do things at your own pace now. You're not really crazy, because initially some of the things that you need to consider is in academia is that you have to publish, and you have to get your research agenda going so that you can actually get tenured and promoted to assistant. And then what I tell my assistants that are going to associate is, don't stop. Just pretend like you still have to stay on this little, race to get that done, so you can go to full professor. Because if you stop doing research, you're done as associate, it's really hard to get back on and to really make up that lost time. It's just got to keep going. You feel a big sigh of relief when you get tenured and promoted, because now the pressure is off. But you have to apply the pressure to yourself. And so it's a great job. And I've always thought that an academic life is the best.
Right. And you always have three things going on at once, always. Conceptual piece into research. So as one goes out, you're still working on one. When one comes back and feedback from the journals, you submitted the second one, and you're almost done with the third. So that you can do any edits on the conceptual while your research one is out. When that one comes back, you send the next one out. And you always have a list of 5 to 6 journals where you can send your things. So depending on the feedback you get from the first journal, if you can resubmit it there, fine. If you can't, go to journal number 2. And you'd be shocked if you keep that rule of 3 going. Your publications will come.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's a good pro tip. Because the students are always tough.
Yeah, and working with people.
Right.
Working in teams and having students working with you. Then all of you everybody's following the same process and the same approach, and then you're getting more things accomplished.
Right. The collaboration piece.
Yep.
Yeah. Students are often always talking about this publish or perish thing, and I think it scares a lot of us about entering academia, research world. But it sounds like there's a way to make it fulfilling, definitely, and maybe not as stressful.
Well, the other thing too is you have to understand like what role you want to play, because there are different types of universities too. Right. I mean, just, if you really like to publish and you like to write and stuff like that, then a research institution, one that has a high focus on research is going to be a place that you're going to be able to thrive, and there'll be sort of mechanisms in place for you to be able to succeed. But then there are other universities, the ones that are more teaching focused, that's still academia, but the pressure is not on publishing. So you still have to do some research, but the pressure now is to be a good teacher, a good instructor. And then you have the private schools as well, that it differs, in terms of whether they're going to put emphasis on research or they're going to put emphasis on teaching, or even community engagement. There's some universities that's their big focus. So again, you're still in academia, but the demands are a little bit different. And that's how you need to decide is, where do you feel most comfortable, and then aim for one of those schools.
Right.
Exactly. Because students should learn what an R1 is, a Research 1 university, Research 2, and then all the others, because they'll have the different demands, like Dr. Vázquez said. So depending what kind of mentor you had, what kind of training you've had, and if you're going to go, if you haven't had the best training where you're at and you want to go to a Research 1 university, you have to make sure that you're going to have the appropriate support, mentors, and a good onboarding program to help you get your research off the ground. Whether that be with startup packages, the equipment you might need, and so forth and so on.
Right.
If it's a research too, it's a little more relaxed, but it's more of a balance between teaching and research, but they're still expecting you to do research and write. A big thing now, because the universities have changed over time, because now the states used to fund more. Now the states are funding much less. So the universities have gone from state funded to state supported. So there's a real big push on grants, research grant, contractual agreements, and so forth, working with the different departments, working with Department of Defense, the NIH, more NSF, and so forth. But if you go to, like, one of my advisees, she just wrote to me this week that she got 2 publications, but she's at a liberal arts college, and she loves it. And she loves it. So she's publishing because she wants to, not because she has to.
Has to, right.
But she does have a heavier load for teaching, a 4.4. Okay, so most research universities at the R1 level are 2.2, but the expectations for research are very, very high. Right. R2 is a little more relaxed. So.
Yeah, I'm at the University of Houston, and they just started this new initiative called 50 and 5, where they're trying to get 50 publications in 5 years, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you know that each publication takes anywhere from a year to a year and a half to get published.
Right.
So unless you're going to conquer things in press, that's going to be a very hard mark to hit.
Yeah, and I think people are very nervous, but it's a new initiative.
Well, they'll be nervous until the new administration comes in after this one goes out.
Perhaps. Perhaps. Okay. What part of your current responsibilities or your current jobs do you enjoy the most?
Well, I still like the research part of it.
Yeah.
I'm since I've been an administrator for so many years, and I just went back to faculty again after another stint. My research suffered some because you just don't have time, or you have to do it at night, or you have to do it in other ways. And I have some things, actually, I just need to finish writing them. But it's engaging students in research and answering questions that are important to us. I still find that probably the most rewarding. I need to also publish, but like I said, the pressure's not on me. But it's still good, to be able to do that, because, how are you going to be a good research mentor if you're not doing research yourself? What kind of role are you, or modeling are you doing for students when you're not engaged in the things that you're asking them to do? And plus, this way too, you can't get the students to connect and give them some different ways to do their work. The other Dr. Vázquez and I have people on campus that are doing, we work, for example, with the engineering college. And so we know all the data that's available that we can access. So if we're doing that, then it helps our students to stay alive, actually, and get done with their programs. And so, and then actually that helps new faculty as well, early career faculty. So I think it's our responsibility to continue providing that mentorship. And so for me, that's still my most, rewarding part of the job. I was going to say recess, but,
that's fun too.
Yeah, I guess for me, it's what I found most exciting for me now is that when there's a collective sense of responsibility and a collective sense of accountability, and working with students and administrators and making the whole system work. I get very irritated when people feel that it's everybody else's job but theirs. Then don't be at a university. Because we all have to work together, and the graduate students have enough to deal with without dealing with dysfunctional relationships, people. And so for me, having that collective sense of responsibility, accountability, I still enjoy doing some. I'm one of those, I see things and I integrate from many different ways. And we end up putting on paper. I mean, we have a model that we developed together that I'm hoping that we get the instrument from it developed. But, and so, yes, my research has suffered miserably. I mean, I've spent so much time with the interpersonal process with people. However, I love doing that too. So, at times you end up being like a fixer. I guess if that's the word you can use. But when everybody's pulling the same way, you'd be amazed at kind of things that not only help students, but also the faculty at the same time.
Yeah, no, I can definitely understand where that would be kind of one of the most rewarding parts.
Yeah, I don't do well with whiners.
Not many people do. I feel like I need to go back to our 50 and 5 discussion at my university. So apparently, I misspoke, not 50 publications. They have to increase their publications by 50%.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, afterwards, I was like, wait, Afterwards, I was like, wait, I think I said that wrong.
50%. Whoa.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I made the comment that your administration is not going to last long.
Yeah, I know. And then I was like, I think I said that wrong. And as you were talking, I was like, I said 50 publications. No, 50% research by 50% in 5 years.
Oh, in 5 years? So if you're doing 5, they want 10.
Right.
If you're doing 10, okay, I see.
Yeah. So they want you to increase by 50%. So yes, research is important.
It's a little bit more reasonable. I mean, it's still, pushing it because it still takes time, but it's still not the 50 and 5. I'm like,
it's still not that.
Well, make sure you read the fine print, because fine print, when they say 50%, are they talking research grants? Are they talking training grants? Are they talking, is that what they mean in 50%? Or are they just talking about the publications? Or are they talking between a balance between the two? So always take a look and see when administrations talk that way, because when I'm at the table and they bring things like this up, I'll ask, okay, someone say, we want to increase the research expenditure of 50%, you know, we could do that through the research, but what does that mean? And what does that mean for you? And if you're from the humanities or psychology areas and you don't have the same opportunity for grants as STEM areas do and the monies, what does that mean? So always look at the fine print when they're saying these kind of things. Find out exactly what that means.
Yeah. I'm going to be reviewing the website after this. Okay.
You should.
Right. Okay. Next question I have what are some of the challenges that you faced in administration roles or as a faculty member being a person of color?
Oh my, I was wondering when your question was going to come up.
What you should ask. Everything is so nice.
See, I had to start good, build it up.
No.
Yeah.
Are you kidding? Probably the toughest challenge is all the people that are always trying to get you.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, somebody's always upset about something. I mean, you're never going to please everybody. And when you get selected or whatever, there's someone that's so they're going to try to do something, mess your life up. And I think, and that's just a lot of wasted time and energy and a lot of emotional time that you spend because, wasting because these people are after you. But, I still remember when I went to the physical science laboratory, it had been in place for 60 years and it was always run by white men. So here I come to be the deputy director. I get hired by an engineer, white male engineer, and everybody was against me. One, I wasn't from there. I wasn't a physical science person, laboratory person. I was not the same, I didn't represent the ethnicities they were, used to, the gender they were used to, the background. Here you have a social scientist running this, place that is all computer people, engineers, biologists, computer scientists. It was just a very different life. And so everybody was always trying to, get me down. I mean, it really got seriously, difficult. In the first few months, I ended up having to close an entire unit and dismiss, and they call it reduction in force, 20 people in one day. And so it was going to be done by somebody else, but oh no, they wanted to put me up to the task to see how they, to scare me and they forget I'm a psychologist and all those skills that we talked about before.
Right.
Well, guess what? I used them. I had people that came to me that I had to, they were going to be terminated from their positions because remember I said this unit was completely externally funded. Right. So if you didn't have any grants, you didn't have a job. So one or I don't remember how many, one or two I remember one more clearly than the others, but they came and they talked to me. And they said, that they knew that it was a hard thing to do, but they appreciated the way that I had done it because it's nice, the whole process for them. Oh yeah, because that's the psychology background. So even though people were expecting me to fall flat on my face, it didn't happen. And so that's been kind of the story of my life in administration is always, looking around the corner to see if there's anybody there. But at the same time, not letting that bog you down because then you're not going to be any good to yourself or to anyone else. And so,
and particularly as a woman of color, I'm sure there's additional challenges.
Absolutely. And then I'm not a very tall person. I mean, so the expectations, and to be honest with you, sometimes even as a faculty member, I felt, I guess people always trying to figure out ways to get back at me or what have you. And sometimes I felt it even the most from students of color. In fact, some of the more difficult challenges that I had when I was an early career faculty member was how easily the students of color felt comfortable to attack me when they weren't doing it to the white males that were actually making their lives miserable.
Right.
So it was like, wait a minute. But I think they were deflecting because they were unhappy and I was an easy bargain.
Easier, yeah.
And so, yeah, because people just, who the heck cares about these people? So, yeah, I think that's probably the biggest. I mean, I've had different types of challenges, but I think that one sort of hits home a lot because I started with those kinds of challenges and I ended with those kinds of challenges.
Wow. So you still, right, there wasn't that opportunity to see it shift in any way.
Yeah, it didn't shift for me.
No. I would have to say that I agree totally with Dr. Vázquez. I would have to say too that women of color have it the worst. Man, they have it the worst.
Double whammy, as I call it.
Exactly. Because we did our early research. Some of the early research they did involve phenotype and skin pigmentation. Because this society is very color conscious.
Right.
And so for women, the average woman administrator is from 5'6" on up in height, very light complected. When they're a person of color, if you see people of color, they're usually lighter complected. We're more palatable that way to the mainstream population, especially in administration. I've been like the area I went into. I'm light complected, so I'm given privileges and entitlements only in the case as long as I don't use them to what would relate to diversity, social justice, and so forth. And I'm one of those people that speak up. So as soon as I open my mouth, okay, then everything starts to change. But I've already infiltrated. I would say by that time, I've already infiltrated the system. I mean, I've been in meetings where people say things and they won't know that I'm Latino, because they haven't introduced myself yet. They haven't had my name. The meeting's about to start and they start talking about people of diversity and how they feel about anti-affirmative action or anti-discriminatory practice. And I'm sitting right there. So then when the meeting starts and I pronounce my name, and then I tell what I believe, then you see the looks on everybody's face like, oh, damn, And so it's like you kind of, you have to, the old saying, and I hate to say this, because, I mean, for the young people, you almost have to do, you have to know twice as much, do twice as much, know twice as much to be just as good. And the tables I sit at, like, for instance, for the Vice President for Research, there's less than 9 Latinos in the whole United States that are the Vice Presidents for Research of universities. Wow. Okay. And then on top of that, there's less than a handful that are psychologists in those positions across the whole country. And then on top of that, it even gets less for women of color. Okay. So as an Associate Vice President for Research, I'm one of the few, maybe 8 or 9 across the country in this position. Because those positions I usually held by hard scientists, bench, the bench scientists, right? And so those STEM scientists are very, how can I say, they're very discriminatory toward the soft sciences. Right. They think that we don't understand. But yet, what they don't realize is they need us to be able to do what they need to do. So that's been, that's a field in itself for research. But as a person of color, when you bring up issues about the social justice, when you bring up issues about the microaggressions, when you bring up issues about implicit bias, when you bring up issues about phenotypical features and skin pigmentation and how that impacts situations you're in, when you bring up issues about being at the table and describing the other experience, and you're the only person of color sitting at that table, because at the level I'm at, there's very few of us. When I sit in some of my meetings, sometimes I'm the only one. Okay. And so I'll bring these issues up when I see them coming. And so when you're in those situations, it has a lot of stress on you. And those stresses, sometimes you have to be careful and take care of yourself, because those stresses wear you down. And at many times it can cause physical symptoms too if you're not careful. Or eating disorders, mental disorders, you name it. I mean, so you come home and you're exhausted. You're wondering who's going to come up next. Okay. Now, when so make sure that you try to find some good allies. But even some of our own people that are trying to come up become very resentful that you're in that position. Right. So it's like, how do you say it? You want to make things different and you want to make things better for everyone, but not everyone feels the same way. Right. Even within your own culture, and you'll have your own type of people that once they're in, I would say there's some of us that forget where we came from and who we are.
Or they want to be the only one.
Oh yeah, they get the queen bee, king bee syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I knew that as a student.
So you can still, how do you say, we're not there yet. And to be honest with you, what worries me about the new millennials is that they're coming up and they seem to be more open about things. Because of the lack of history and truly understanding the struggles, they get caught in things that many of us who are older see right away because we've been around.
Right.
And when you get hit with something like that, the reality of the situation that you're in when it hits home can be very painful at times.
Right.
That's why you need some good people to talk to and so forth. But on the upside, we've been able to open doors and be able to graduate students and move people on more than we ever had before.
Right.
So there's trade-offs. So make sure you have a thick skin.
Yep. I've heard that one before. So I guess that's a part of the next question too, and you kind of answered some of that, was what advice do you have for students coming up and how to navigate these challenges? That kind of...
I can, I guess I go, and you know what? Know who you are and know yourself. And know what your convictions are, what you value, and what you're not willing to negotiate. Because if you don't know where you stand,
right,
and you end up agreeing to things that you truly don't believe in, the cost is very great, and you regret it, and it really hits you hard. Right. And you have to live with that. Always make sure that you have people around you that have your best interests in mind. So, for instance, this is terrible to say, I guess. There's not a lot of people I listen to, but my significant other, when she tells me something, I know, okay, there's something here. But when I have some of the people on campus that tell me something, I'm like, okay, I'll make note of it.
Right.
But I know sometimes my best interest is not their best interest. So, so does that make sense?
Yeah,
so,
that makes sense.
So have people you trust. Have people that could tell you, hey, come here, let's pull you back a little bit. Listen, this is going on. This is how you might want to play this, versus you going in, I didn't have that kind of mentorship. So I went head on, and I truly believed in equality and justice for all the whole bit. And then when I got in there, I realized, okay, there's different ways of what's defined as equality, affirmative action, social justice, all those kinds of things.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I mean, I think definitely knowing yourself is going to be a real important key. But also know that you don't have to take on all the fights. You don't have to take on all the battles yourself. At the end of the day, you have to be able to go home and sleep. And if you feel like you should have said something, then you probably should have said something, because it's just gnawing at you. But sometimes you don't have to say something. Sometimes you can just sit back and watch and learn from it, so that you start trying to figure out who does have your best interest in mind, or who at least could be an ally. And the best way to do that is through observation and seeing how other people step up for issues. Because when you're the only person of color in a position or I mean, we're a Hispanic serving institution, but then I would always find myself around all these white men because of the position I was in. Right. And so, everybody looks to you because you're going to be the voice for the entire race, for the entire ethnicity, the entire group. And so you have to decide, okay, is that my responsibility right now? And sometimes it is, and you got to take it, but sometimes it's not. I mean, sometimes other people need to step up and take some responsibility. So that's what I would say, especially when you're first starting out, is not to take everything head on. And I know we all want to be social activists. And of course, it's going to also depend on your own personality style. Some people don't like conflict. They're going to avoid it as much as they can. and then they're going to be angry about it. And so those are skills you're going to have to learn to develop over time. I always tell everybody I'm an introvert. You know, when I took that little test, I came out an I, not an E. But I had to learn to be in front of people. You know, I have to speak to a lot of people at one time, hundreds, you know, a small group, big groups. And so those are skills that you can actually develop. And you can actually develop sort of more comfort, you know, in getting outside your range or your box. And so that for me would be another suggestion. Always take some chances, you know, try to expand yourself a little bit more, because that's how you grow. And know that there are some people out there to help you out, and there are people out there that are not going to help you out, that might be against you. But I don't want to leave you all thinking, oh, that's all she experienced was people coming after her. No, that's not true. You know, there were other people that helped support me, and particularly my husband, Luis. Who, you know, we always know we have each other's back, and we're not going to, you know, shy away from things. And the other thing too, though, that people get worried when you're a couple is that I'm always going to step up to defend him for everything. You know, and they can't say this because she'll go tell him that. I mean, and that's a weird position to be in. But sometimes we do need us to come to our each defense, and sometimes we don't. You know, sometimes we got to take care of it ourselves and not depend on that. And I think that's what has helped us be very strong in ourselves, is able to step up for ourselves when we need to, without having to always, you know, make it a thing about just the two of us. That it's, you know, we're two individuals, but we're also a group, a couple. So you know, that's all the things that you sort of have to navigate, especially when you're first starting out, is trying to figure out how to get through and swim upstream and swim downstream in order to accomplish your tasks. And remember, your first goal as a faculty member, as an academic, is to get tenured and promoted. And then once you get tenured and promoted, that gives you a little bit more leeway and more permission, in essence, to be able to speak up more and more and more. But, you know, I wouldn't say not to ever say anything. I'd just say temper that.
Your balance. Pick your battles.
Pick your battles wisely. Yeah. Some of them are going to be real important to you, and some of them, you know, they're just nuisance.
You know, please keep in mind that when you're an administrator, faculty, or whatever, okay, you're in a higher position than most of your population of people of color in the United States. So much is expected. So by the people of color, they'll come to you and say, well, you're in this position, how come you can't do this? And you're thinking, oh my God, this is a lot bigger. This is going to need a lot more work. It's going to need a lot more. It's not that you can't help, but there has to be, versus the what I call the unloading. Well, Luis is associate vice president. Let's go get him because he's a minority administrator. He'll understand. I do understand. And then I'll say, okay, collectively, this is what we need to do. And they'll say, oh, well, that's not exactly what we were thinking that you know, it's okay. Those types of things. Also, most of our white colleagues get chosen to go to ACES programs, leadership programs, all this professional development. And we rarely get those opportunities or are asked to. So if you're ever going to do any of these things, take advantage of all these different programs so you can see how it really works on the inside. I mean, I always tell people, learn the white perspective because you're going to need it if you're going to be in administration. Okay. And those, like those ACE fellowships, I always see, I've seen many of my colleagues that get them, but none of them are people of color. You know, so they'll go and spend a year with some president at some university to learn how to do administration.
Wow, I didn't even know that was a thing.
Exactly, that's my point.
Yeah.
And then there are some leadership training programs as well. And you just got to make sure you pick one of the right ones that fits for you and what you're doing.
Exactly.
The other thing is looking ahead. And that's one of the things that, because we are reluctant leaders and accidental leaders, we didn't set out, oh, I'm going to be a president of the university. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Because if you are, that's a different trajectory for you. And that's one of the things that we've seen, is that the reason why so many people in these higher leadership positions are white is because it's almost like they're wired that way, or somebody told them, or somebody mentored them. Hey, you know,
mentors,
yeah. Hey, if you're going to want to go through this, then you want to spend 5 years in this position, and then start looking for another position, and then start looking for your next position, and always dressing, acting like you've got the next job, but always doing your job well. And that's the one thing that I do want to remind you is, even if you're going to be doing something in a leadership position that you're not in right now, do your current job well, because you won't get selected, especially when you're a person of color. Definitely won't be selected if you're slacking off, if you don't have follow through or anything like that. I've seen a lot of, you know, people that, and I go, yeah, but you don't even, people can't count on you.
Right.
They're not going to make you, you know, an administrator if they can't count on you. So that's the, you know, look ahead, but while still doing your job correctly, so that you know how much time you spend in each of these positions if you really want to advance.
Right.
And we really need people to do that. You know, we did it reluctantly, but we're counting on you young people. This is my charge to you all. We need you in leadership positions, and just get somebody to help you so that you don't spend 25 years in a job and say, oh, I want to be a dean now. Well, 25 years have passed. You know?
Yeah.
All these things have happened. You should have started a lot sooner, is what we're learning. And so take it from us. If you want further, you know, to get jobs further up along or levels, you got to anticipate.
Plan ahead.
Yeah, there's tracks for each of these things, and then but having the right people to show you where the track is, that's what makes the difference. And many times for people of color, it happens either by accident or we don't get it at all. You know, so I mean, and I wish it wasn't like that. You know, some places are improving in doing that and making sure that they're moving people up in different positions. You know, like for some places don't have faculty fellows within their, you know, and that's for you to get some experience so you can move forward.
Right.
And they put them into other leadership types of training and professional development and mentoring and so forth. And to be honest with you, I didn't know any of that stuff existed until I got into about 15 years of being in there. Then I began, So there's a lot out there. I sit with people in big meetings with Department of Defense that are presidents of universities. And I swear a lot of the colleagues I have, people of color, could easily do that job because I know what they can do.
Yeah, but you have to know, right? You have to know that job even exists.
Exactly. And how to get there.
Oh, wow. Okay, I'm learning a lot, and I'm sure that the audience out there will as well. I don't have any more questions, but is there anything that I didn't ask that you kind of thought I would ask, or any parting words you'd like to leave us with?
I say support each other, stick together. Don't do the pecking order, the queen bee, king bee thing. And also make sure that if you don't have a mentor on your campus or you don't have people you can talk to, find others. When we first started out, we were at the University of Iowa, and we contacted Amal Ali in Stanford, and he stepped up to the plate to help us out.
Wow.
Okay, he helped us out. And so Joseph Ponorado from Fordham, he helped us out. Mama Vázquez, she's helped us out. I mean, I could go down the list, you know, so what some of our elders have said, they've actually done. We've helped many out ourselves too. You know, we've been there, been through the battles and so forth. And so, and they were starting out too, and they have, many of them have either stayed in private practice or have stayed in academia. I know very few of them, very few outside of Thomas Parham, who's an actual president of a university in California, of a state university in California.
Right.
But most of the others are not in the administrative, you know, vice president or research vice president or so forth, you know. So there's very few people of color in the higher administrations in academia at the highest levels.
I may be shooting you an email about some of those resources.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's what I would say is just count on other people to help you out. Lean on folks that know what you want to do, and get that help from other people, even if you don't find them right there in your own place or in your own college.
Right.
There are people across the country. These webinars are kind of key because they can reach out to any of us that have done anything like that.
Right.
So now you're expanding your circle of folks that can provide assistance, because we're all going to be able to help each other out. And so don't feel like you're all alone and you have to do it all by yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You are the next group of leaders, so
You got to make it count.
Yeah.
Hey, if I'm standing on the shoulders of giants, you all better not mess it up.
Well,
We got
there's
a lot
our
of people
charge.
behind us. We got a lot of people behind us that we have to do good by.
Right.
Got to keep moving it forward.
Well, I think those were great parting words, and I would like to thank you both for your time on this Saturday afternoon.
Hey, I got my cupcakes done.
Yes, and you got your cupcakes done. But thank you. And we will probably return with other faculty members and getting great advice as well. So
Great.
Thank you again.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, Krystal.
All right.
Bye,
Take
everybody.
care. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.